is up, all my fellow dingleberries? This is some idiot with a wrench, hanging out, doing Ford things again. So, when last we left off, I had struggled through some brake stuff, didn't really film a lot of that, because it was painful. Did a lot of bleeding in the car and through my physical form, and some other stuff. In a vain attempt to try and get the car roadworthy. Didn't really pan out. There's a new throttle cable, all the brakes are plumbed up, there's kind of a pedal now, it kind of wants to stop. There's some other stuff happened, but none of it's exciting. Today, we're doing something that I think is a bit more exciting. We are going to replace the carburetor. So, when I was trying to drive this thing, the biggest issue that I had, besides what's circled on the steering wheel in there, is this carburetor is kind of a piece of junk. The accelerator pump is not accelerating, and there are just a ton of vacuum leaks all over this, in this general area, right? Specifically on the back of these plates and stuff in the back of the carburetor, like a lot. So, which explains why as soon as I went to like put it in gear, it would kind of idle and move the car, but as soon as you just like looked at the throttle pedal the wrong way, she'd die. And you know, we got to play a really fun game of stand on the brakes, feather the throttle, let the brakes off, catch the car before it dies. You know, not what you would call like a functional automobile. So, to remedy that, we're just gonna delete that little 2-barrel. Now, the right way to do this, to move it to a 4-barrel carburetor, is to put a new intake on it. And those are really expensive. One, you can't hardly find any used small block Ford parts on the second market, the aftermarket or whatever. On Facebook or Craigslist, right? Which is where I got a lot of that kind of stuff, like the intake on this guy. Really cheap, right? You can't really do that. There's not a lot of people still hot rodding these old small block Fords, not nearly as many that are still mess with Chevy stuff. Loop back to, you know, my rant about how much Ford sucks. And like, to order an intake, it's like $250 at the cheapest, at the cheap end. And then I've got to remove the distributor and all my things and stuff, and then I'd have to see what the valley looks like. No, we don't want to do that, right? Because like the more I tear into it, the more I'm going to see and the more I'm going to have to fix. So we're not even going to pretend to not see it. We're just not going to see it. Now, the way to mount one of these 4 barrels onto a 2-barrel intake is one of these guys, right? This is a adapter-rooney plate. This is going to go on the intake, and then our carb is going to mount to the plate. Is it going to perform as well as a new intake that's actually made for 4-barrel carbs? No, absolutely not. And I'm not expecting it to. In no way, shape, or form is that the expectation. It is going to run a lot better because I'm actually going to be able to seal it. The accelerator pump on this thing works. This is the carburetor that was on this girl for like a year or 2 years. My like last year and change that I was in Hawaii, before I moved back to the lower 48, before it got torn apart, and now there's a Holly on it. So it was on the shelf collecting dust, and so now it's time to throw it on this girl. The thing is, it ran super rich on the 350, and this is almost 70 cubic inches smaller, so I know that it's going to be way too fat. So I've got a carb tuning kit in the toolbox that we're going to pull out. We're going to see if we can't jet down, maybe lower the metering rods, put smaller rods in it, and make it a little bit more palpable for this baby 289. Make sure we're not like rolling coal, although I guess that would be kind of cool. Anyway, so that's kind of the goal for today, for today's video. We're gonna rejet my old Edelbrock. We're going to yank the old carburetor off. We're going to put the adapter plate on, put the carb on, and it'll solve all of our problems. Hopefully. Doubtful. Anyway, let's stop yapping about it, and let's get to being about it. Okay, so I've got my tuning kit here busted out in front of me. Just so you guys know, as soon as you open these, they are not refundable. Just a heads up, make sure you buy the right one. So this is the instructions that came in the kit, and it's got this handy dandy chart here. And as far as I can tell, because if you look left to right, it says the same thing, lean rich, lean rich. So the farther down in this corner you're at, the leaner you are, and the farther up you are, the richer you are. And I'm sure one of these directions, one of these axes is vacuum as well. I'm going to assume. I've spent 10 minutes scratching my head looking at it, can't figure it out, so I just picked a number and I'm going to go with it. So I think I want to do this 10 combination. You come down here and it tells you on this chart, right, what number you want to try and aim for, and then it gives you a combo of your jet stamp and your rod stamps to get to this spot, whatever spot you decide on this tuning chart. Again, because this carburetor is going to be a little bit oversized for this engine, not to mention this engine has also got just a 2-barrel. I want to make her pretty lean. I thought about doing 12, but I'd rather be a little bit richer than a little bit too lean. So, and I only want to do this once. So, what you got to do is get your jet stamp and your rod stamp, and then on these things, on the top, and I think the very smallest print that they could possibly squeeze onto these things, they've got IDs stamped. Same thing along the side of your rods here. It's exceptionally hard to read. I almost had to go break out like my old school Batman style magnifying glass to read what was happening. But I got by okay. This is the combo that I'm going to go with, as long as when I pull these out, that's not already a smaller combo, in which case they can just hang out. Now the way these Edelbrocks work, as opposed to Hollies with their power blocks and the Bogger jets with the magic that they use, these guys use the metering rods and the jets. Essentially, these guys are screwed in all the way at the bottom, and then your rod hangs out through the middle of your jet, and then depending on what vacuum or throttle is doing, the jet comes up, or the rod comes up or comes down, and it meters the fuel flow, Jesus Dalton, that comes through these little jets. That's about how it works. To really get this refined a bit more, you kind of do need this on the car and see what it does at idle, because you can also change your springs if you are so inclined. I'm gonna try and not have to do that. But anyway, if I do have to do it, I'll do it later, I guess. First step is we've got to find these Torx bits, if I even have them, so I can get these guys off. These are kind of spring loaded. The top of your rod sits in here like this, and here, and then as soon as you get that up and out of the way, you can pull the rod and then send a screwdriver down there and mar up your old jets in an attempt to get your new ones in. So let me go dig through my toolbox, see if I've got these somewhere. I feel like I do, hopefully. And then we'll come back and I'll pick you guys up after I've got the old one torn apart. Cool. All right, so Operation Waste a Bunch of Money is going really well. So I'm just gonna stop myself right there. I lost a clip. The Magic Recorder Cube had a goof. I basically explained how I wasn't able to change the metering rods or the jets in this carburetor. I bought the wrong non-refundable tuning kit instead of the correct non-refundable tuning kit, which really fucking sucks because they're like 40 or 50 bucks. But whatever, here we are. Such is life, such is Project Car. So I decided to just move ahead with slapping the carburetor on the car, and that's basically all that other clip was. At this point, I've pretty much got I do have everything from the old stock carb ripped off the car, and I kind of walk you guys around and talk about it. So just in case you're confused, there it is. Let's get on with Operation Waste a Bunch of Money. I've got everything off. Here's the old carburetor, leaking gas all over my workbench. Oh, and now all over the garage floor. That's fine. Yeah, it's junk. That gasket, I don't know how well you guys can see that. She shot. Explains one of my many vacuum leaks. You might be saying, Dalton, why don't you just put a new gasket on that? Oh, because the accelerator pump doesn't work, and feels like every time we let the car sit for too long, it just doesn't want to idle again. Like that thing it's fighting us. It's fighting us, and I'm done fighting, right? I'm a lover, not a fighter. We're not fucking with it. So, here's what the adapter Rooney plate looks like. So, whoever had this car before me, they actually did have a spacer for their vacuum port for the PCV system. So, that's kind of alleviated some of my worry about clearances with these things, the linkages. So cool, that'll be awesome. Now I still need to get these studs out of here, but I was using them as kind of like a reference to figure out which one of the many holes on this thing I'm going to have to use. There we go. Those, apparently. And then look at how nice that fits in there. Awesome. That's new. Same with that one down there. Let me show you guys something, actually. We have this Firestarter 5000 in the car, and yeah, I think the gas tank's got just a little bit of crud in it, based on what that looks like. So, that might also be part of our problem. So I put a much better filter than the glass Go Fast Hot Rod one down there before the fuel pump, and now we got one that's going to be between the fuel pump and the carburetor, and hopefully they'll catch everything coming out of the tank, because I really don't want to drop the tank. They're expensive. I don't want to try and clean it because that sounds like a massive pain in the ass. I'm just hoping we'd run enough filters and eventually she comes around, right? She decides to not be a problem. We'll see. Anyway, I know which holes I need to use on this adapter plate now. These studs are still too tall and they don't fit the 4-barrel. So I'm going to use hardware from the kit to mount it, but I need to get these studs out of here. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to run 2 of these nuts that were on the studs that kind of clampolated everything down the studs. Run one, then the other, and then you use a wrench on the bottom stud, and the bottom bolt and then the top bolt will push against it, and it'll let you turn them and pull the studs out. Then after the studs are out, I'm going to clean the fuck out of this surface, because if you can't tell, she's a little bit gross and a little bit grody, and I don't care how nice your gaskets are, if you're trying to mate them to something that looks like that, well, they're just not going to do gasket things. So I'm going to wad up some paper towel or some shop rags and shove them down those 2 inlets in the intake, because I don't want the crap that I'm getting ready to clean off this surface to fall down in there. Shove those in there, and then get the wire wheel attached to the drill. Jesus, English is just not my first language tonight, apparently. Get the drill and do the vroom vroom thing, and then the kit came with gaskets, and so I'll throw the gaskets on. The kickdown rod for the C4, the thing on the throttle linkage that makes that do the thing, this guy right here, I don't know how to get it off. I don't know how to disassemble the linkages on these carburetors, but I was looking, this bit on the Edelbrock, this big ass hole, that is in roughly the same place. So hopefully that's how I can attach the kickdown rod, and the geometry won't be too fuckered. I mean, if not, it's not like I can do anything worse to this car. It's gonna be fine. And then I think my biggest issue is going to be finding enough like vacuum plugs for all the shit that I don't need to run on this carburetor that this one didn't have, right? This has only got like 1 or 2 vacuum ports on the whole thing. The Edelbrock's got like 80. So hopefully I've got some vacuum plugs kicking around in the toolbox. But just a quick update. That's what we're doing. Yeah. Clean your surfaces. If you're going to put gaskets in, make sure that, you know, give those gaskets the best chance to seal as possible. And then go slow. Thankfully, this adapter plate didn't come with directions, so I didn't have to read. But if it did, I would have. Right? Read your directions. Anyway, let me get that cleaned up and throw some gaskets down, and I'll show you guys what it all looks like after I get this Edelbrock attached. Hopefully, we can fire the car up and see if it makes any noise. Cool. All right, so we are moving right along. This is what my intake surface looks like now. Much better. Get some of this crap out of here. Promise I cleaned it. You can see all the brake clean down in here. So this is kind of what you want, right? A lot of times when you notice, like if you pull anything with a gasket, especially like these kind, like they're almost like papery kind of gaskets, what can happen is part of that old gasket gets left behind and it like glues itself to whatever that metal surface is. And even when you take like a whiz wheel or something to it, it like kind of rounds out and it kind of looks like it belongs there, if that makes any kind of sense, but it doesn't, right? This machined surface should be perfectly smooth. There should be no like weird or oblong bumps on any of these gasket surfaces, these sealing surfaces, none. So I take the cheek poker to them, and then I get my fancy expensive scraper tool, also known as a key if you drive a Ford, and then I just get in there and really let it beat, get all the big chunks out. And again, block off if you're doing an intake or something, make sure you block off those intake holes, and then hit it with the cheek poker again, the whiz wheel again, right? You do not want to do all this work, get this all together, and then realize you've still got a leak because you didn't clean your surfaces good enough. Ask me how I know. Pro tip for you. So now that that's clean, I've test fit this like 2 more times, as well as with the gasket. These are the bolts that are going to hold this to the intake, and then I've got these guys that are going to hold this to that adapter plate, and the gasket thing is over there somewhere. And I've got like 80 other ones, right? Because this style Edelbrock uses the same kind of gasket that the Hollies do, or at least they look close enough that I kind of use them interchangeably. I don't know. Again, if it ever sounds like I'm trying to give you guys advice or how to do anything, I'm not. I really don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just trying to regurgitate things smarter people than me have said and or written down. Anyway, I'm going to get the adapter plate on with the gasket, and then I'm going to get the carburetor plopped on top and get everything kind of torqued to spec, and then we'll go about getting everything hooked up, make sure everything's going to work the way that we want it to work. Cool. Let's do it. Okay, I've been hard at work for a while. The sun's gone. Losing light. So, the Edelbrock is in. Everything fits, right? I probably should put some more slack in this throttle cable, but whatever. It is the way it is. And because it's this awesome Amazon Originals universal kit, I can take some threads out of that if I want to. I don't know. I'll think about it and I'll get back to you guys. That's still not a tonight thing. The PCV valve is really short, so it's hooked up to the giant vacuum fitting on the back of the carburetor for a brake booster if this was a nice car and had power brakes. It doesn't, because it's not. So I had to run a pipe clamp on the rubber there so that it would seal up, not be a massive vacuum leak. Speaking of massive vacuum leaks, the PCV is set up on this carb for the front for a Chevy like God intended, and I don't have a vacuum plug big enough to like stop that up. You can see it right there. Man, this light is, I'm losing it quick. So to solve that, I went and grabbed what's left of my thing of fuel line, about 4 feet of it. It fits really snug up there, and then I shoved a bolt down this end. You know, because we would hate to have a vacuum leak after having spent 4 hours doing this because I had a vacuum leak. Go figure. Got the fuel line hooked up again with the wrong style hose clamps, but whatever, they're in there. I'm excited to see what they pick up, especially the one that's after the fuel pump, because if it continues to be really, really gnarly, that could be really, really bad. Okay. Oh, I didn't talk about it, but the power steering pump, the away pump, was all fuckered, so I fixed it. And by fixed it, I mean I cut about 4 inches off the fitting and then stretched the hose a little bit and then reclamped it. Didn't even use the second clamp, which is awesome. I don't even know if it's supposed to have 2, but I think that's it. Famous last words. I even wired in the electric choke, put it to the positive end of that starter relay. Even got my fancy electro digimeter thing out to check it, to see if it would do the thing. Well, to see which one was positive, right? And with the key rolled over on to ignition, I had volts there, so hopefully that's like enough. So what I think I'm gonna do is set you guys up and then get in the car and try and start it, and then see what this carburetor does. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work. So let me go get a can of something flammable so that I can fill the bowl with like brake clean or something, or gas, I don't know, maybe. And then let's see what happens. Oh, the only thing that I wasn't able to hook up is this kickdown rod, which I don't think is a requirement to like even run it, right? Because it's the kickdown, right? So it sends you down a gear. So I think it'll be fine for right now, or even tootling around the neighborhood if the car behaves, if it gets up and goes. So I'm gonna have to figure out some form of bracketry to make that work, but that's a problem for a day when I've got more brain cells. Anyway, let me grab the keys and we'll see if she does anything. Cool. Turns out I actually have a can of laughing gas. So see what she does. Nothing? Is the battery that dead? leak yet. Yeah, there's fuel on there. Well, I'd say that worked. Fuck yeah. All right, it is really dark. It's actually not that late, but I've got nothing but those guys for light right now. And I'm not the best at tuning a carburetor in the daylight. So I'm not gonna try and mess with it this evening. But holy shit, does it run. Idle's way too high. My smellometer's telling me that, yeah, she's probably a little rich, but whatever. It's functional at this point. It is functional, which is awesome. That's what I want. And I was able to start it with a real key inside the car. Now, granted, I'm holding the ignition cylinder, you know, I ain't cupping it like a, well, I'm not gonna finish that joke, because there's no bezel for the dash. I forgot that. Is why I bought the Cool Kid switches instead of just replacing the cylinders. Whatever. It works. The power steering pump wasn't leaking. That's what you guys saw me checking with the flashlight. At least the side I fixed. The side I didn't fuck with, it's still got a really slow leak, but whatever. I'm not worried about that. Yeah, it does the thing. Cool. All right. I think I'm good for tonight. Thank you guys for watching. Really, I honestly appreciate it. It's really fun to like share this stuff and these little victories with you guys. So anyway, keep watching, like, comment, subscribe, all that other happy YouTube crap. It means the world to me. It honestly does. And I will see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I know I'm going to. I think I'm going to make some more noise before I go to bed. See ya.